Another edition of Mike versus the World. The topic this time around: the currently 7th-ranked USC Trojans. Mike, they should be in the playoff. They win out. I'm going to go on a limb here. I'm going to say, yeah, they should. I'm going to say yes, that they should. Now, I don't know. Again, the big factor the world can tell you here is what else is going to happen around USC, right? So upsets, defeats, teams falling, rising, who knows, right? I think if you just look at what USC has in them to take care of their own business, they have UCLA, which right now is a top 25 team. They play a Notre Dame, which somehow snuck back in, Mike, and they're actually playing good football, although Navy gave them a nice little scare over the weekend, but they snuck back in the top 25. And you're looking then at a matchup between either Oregon or Washington in the Pac-12 title game. Both teams, again, currently ranked in the top 25. So down the stretch, 3 top 25 opponents. Yes, the world will concede to you. I don't know how good all of those teams really are outside of Oregon. If Oregon gets in that title game, I think that could be more interesting. But the world will concede. I don't know how good Notre Dame really is. I don't know how good UCLA really is. But they've got 3 pretty monster games in front of them that if you win those against 3 top 25 ranked opponents, I think it gets pretty difficult to keep them out of the playoff at that point. Again, I don't know what's going to happen around them, so that's the part I can't tell you. But I think if you said to yourself, if I'm USC, hey, you control your own destiny, you win these 3 games, do you think you're getting the playoff? I think most people would say yes in a vacuum. Now, again, there's other factors, but I think if they win these 3 games, I think they absolutely should have every opportunity to get in that playoff.
So let's assume that Georgia beats LSU and they win the SEC title, because they're going to be favored probably prohibitively, 10 points.
Okay.
So LSU's out. Let's assume, Ohio State beats Michigan, Michigan beats Ohio State, whatever. Let's assume the loser's out. And let's assume TCU stumbles, because we're still waiting for that stumble. Baylor is a bit of a trap game. They've got the Big 12 championship. Iowa State, I don't think is going to beat them, but you never know. I still say no. and the reason I say no is simply because, so you got Georgia, and then you've got your Big Ten. And then at that point, I would rather take a 1-loss TCU team. I would certainly rather take a 1-loss Tennessee team. And the reason I say this is because USC hasn't beaten anybody. And these games they have coming up, I mean, yeah, you mentioned, how did Notre Dame get back in the top 25? Well, they're Notre Dame. I mean, yes. They beat Syracuse. That's cute. And the win against, North Carolina is looking better and better as North Carolina continues to win. And they beat Clemson. So there's some good wins there. But they also lost to Marshall. They lost to Stanford, to, teams at home they should have never lost to. But they're back in. So that's going to help USC. UCLA just lost to Arizona, but they kept their top 25 ranking because of that. And Oregon is, somewhat in the driver's seat. And they're a good football program, but they just lost to Washington. So you're talking about teams like UCLA coming off a loss. You're talking about, Oregon coming off a disappointing loss to Washington. You're talking about a Notre Dame team that, is iffy. Those don't get me past TCU, even if they lose a football game, because they've got better victories. They certainly don't get me past Tennessee.
But do they? So what's – hold on. So I'm aligned with Georgia and whatever the Big Ten, right? I think the top 2, I think makes sense, right? Right. Even at the configuration that Georgia's now beaten LSU, which is how they stay at 1. Then if you want to throw a Tennessee in the mix, right, and say, hey, they should be considered as a top 4 spot, sure. But if you're telling me I've got a 1-loss TCU against what will be at that 1-loss USC conference champion, I'm going to take TCU. Is it because of that convincing win over Oklahoma, who's trash? Is it because of that win against Kansas, who's kind of come down earth a little bit? Is it that win against 18 Texas, who we don't think is really, really great? At that point, their 2 top wins become Oklahoma State and Kansas State. And either of the teams were, Kansas State's okay, but Kansas State lost to Tulane, who just got housed by UCF. So how good is Tulane at this point, right? Oklahoma State, where's their signature win is going to be Oklahoma State?
It's
where USC will have beaten either Oregon or Washington in a Pac-12 title.
It still doesn't thrill me. And I'm putting it right now. The best
Oklahoma State thrills you?
Okay, well, USC's best win right now is
Mike Gundy's got you excited, Mike. All right,
Oregon State's USC's best win. Oregon State. So they're going to finish their schedule with 2 teams that I think are vastly overrated in UCLA and Notre Dame. So you could argue Oklahoma certainly was vastly overrated when they beat them when they were number 18. Kansas was vastly overrated when they beat them when they were number 19. Oklahoma State was number 8 at the time and then falling apart. In Texas, obviously, because of brand.
So we've canceled out wins though. Like then we've canceled out because you've got three that over there, and I've got three over here. They cancel each other out.
I've got extra. So let's cancel out Oklahoma, Kansas, and Texas. I still got Kansas State. I mean, that's a good victory.
I'm gonna have Oregon. I'm gonna have
Oregon State.
I'm gonna have Oregon, Washington.
That's your third. That's one of you're canceled. You have no.
No, I'm not canceling. I'm canceling UCLA because you said you're not sure if they're any good, right? I'm canceling Notre Dame because I'm not sure if they're any good. Oregon is good.
Yeah, I do, and there's one quality win for you. I'm going to give you one quality win.
And the one quality win on TCU side is that Oklahoma State is good.
No, Kansas State's good. First
of all. Kansas. Okay, so then now we're comparing a Pac-12 champion who's beaten a good Oregon team versus a Big 12 runner-up. Are you saying TCU is going to win the Big 12? I don't know where, because I don't think you see the loss at Baylor or Iowa State.
No, but they're going to. Let's say they lose the Big 12, right? And they have one loss.
To who?
It's still, I mean, the one loss for USC is Utah, but I have more quality wins. Even if you throw out Oklahoma, I mean, so let's, if you want to negate those, I still got Texas. I mean, Texas, I know they're overrated. I get it. You've got Oregon. I've got Kansas State and Texas.
Well, if you get Texas, why can't I get Notre Dame?
Because Notre Dame's just lost 2 games at home to horrible football teams. At least Texas has played. They played. They lost a 1-point game to Alabama. They lost to Texas Tech. That's a crappy one. They lost to a ranked Oklahoma State at the time. They lost to a top 5 team in TCU. I mean, at least they've lost to real teams. Notre Dame hasn't lost to real teams. Ohio State, yeah, that's a big loss and it's a good loss. Stanford and Marshall don't impress me. They're both propped up, but I just have more victories. Even if you just look for it and negate, I've got 4 top 25 victories. You don't. You've got 3. So I win. I know you won a conference championship. Whoop-de-doo. I would take the Big 12 over the Pac-12 this year. And
I don't disagree with that, by the way. But
I think there's 6 teams in the Pac-12 ranked in the top 25, I believe. And there's only 3 in the Big 12. Okay. So Pac-12 fans are saying, oh, my gosh, the Pac-12 is 10 times better, blah, blah, blah. But the wins, Stanford, Oregon State, Arizona State, Washington State, Arizona, Colorado, I could beat these teams. And I think UCLA sucks. And I think Notre Dame's overrated. So, again, your point about Oklahoma and Kansas and Oklahoma State, I still think they're better teams. I think if Oklahoma State played UCLA, they'd beat them. I just think there's more quality wins, and I'm not buying into this weak schedule of USC.
Sure, but I'm still. So we're gonna go check for check across the ledger, and then we're gonna get to conference championship. I'm gonna put a check in my line. I'm not putting a check in yours, and then I'm gonna put a check on best win. I'm gonna put probably a top 12 to 15. I'll just go Oregon right now win, and you're gonna put a top 18-ish, 20-ish Kansas State.
Yeah.
Like I've got 2 extra checks on my side.
Nah, you're discounting completely the fact that I've got 4 wins to your 3. So how does that work? I got 4 top.
I won a conference championship. Put another finger up, and not the one you're thinking about. Put another finger up. Now I've got a conference championship.
Whatever.
It also matters, Mike. Look, you and I both know this. It matters when you lose. So if TCU loses in the Big 12 title game and USC wins, it matters when you lose.
Brand matters. TCU loses, they're out.
Fair.
I get it. In USC, oh my God, fight on, we're back, blah, blah, blah. West Coast market. I get all that crap. I'm just saying
the argument would be better if you said that they both lose in the conference championship games. TCU loses to, I don't know, can't say a school up there, right? And the USC loses like that. The argument would be differently at that point. I would go at TCU all day long, but I think you can't keep they won't keep a 1-loss Pac-12 champion USC out of the college football playoff. Brand, Lincoln Riley, ratings through the roof.
Oh, I hear you.
I mean, that'll be a thing.
But I don't think they should. I don't see enough quality victories here. And this is the assumption too that okay, we're assuming TCU is going to beat Baylor, although it's a trap game. We're assuming TCU is going to beat Iowa State and finish 12-0. assuming that USC is going to beat UCLA, despite that they're overrated in a rivalry game, is an assumption, and I assume they're going to win. Assuming they're going to be Notre Dame, I don't know. I don't know if they will. And then assuming they're going to win the Pac-12. So there's a lot more assuming going on here with USC. This is less likely to occur for them. But all things being equal, if they go 12-1 and win the Pac-12, and TCU goes 12-1 and loses the Big 12, you're right. Brand, Lincoln Riley,
yes.
Win, you lose, how hot you are at the end of the season, all those things come into play. But I can't add up enough good victories for USC to offset the good victories for TCU. I could poke holes in anything. I could poke holes in Oregon if you want me to. I mean, they lost 49-3 to the number one team in the country. They looked horrible. That's a horrible, horrible, embarrassing loss, and it's going to keep them out of the playoff too as a 2-loss team. You know, we could poke holes in Texas all we want, but I've got 4 quality wins. You've got 3 in a conference championship. I would take my 4. It's me.
I'll see you in the playoffs then.